But we're going to start with the Manchester derby because I know it's been a couple of days, but it's the only time of the week I see LB and get to actually chat to him about it. We knew it wasn't going to be a classic game from the perspective of quality for 90 minutes. In fact, in the end, though, it's probably come an all-time classic Premier League game with the way it was won. From a City perspective, I know you guys have not been in a good place, but were you expecting much more than that on Sunday? More fight, more dynamism, more chances?
More chances, no. More dynamism, no. What were the other two?
I don't remember. More fight.
More fight. Yeah, I expected more fight. Yeah, I know that we're not very good at the moment. You know, I've been saying this for a long time, and people keep on. You know, I've been telling people, you guys need to stop thinking that Manchester City are the Manchester City of last year or the year before. Yeah, we're not. And I know it's really difficult for people to get that because they go, but what about this player? What about this player? A lot of the players that we have now at the football club are just not good enough. Yeah, they're not good enough. And when you realise that, and you realise it by just watching them without emotion, watching these players play football without thinking about what they've done in the past, realising, that a minor 1% drop in their ability via the fact that they're old is just blown up when you're playing elite level sport. So you've got a player like Kyle Walker, who's now nearly 35 years old, and he's lost that bit of pace that he had, right? You've got Gundogan, who's lost that little bit of energy he had in midfield. You've got De Bruyne, who's getting on for 34, who's had his hamstring operated on not a year ago. Yeah? And then you've got other players that are not performing to the level that they should be. Foden, Haaland, yeah? Is Doku good enough for this team, starting week in, week out? Is Bernardo Silva at that level? When you actually deep it, we've got a situation where a lot of the players that we had in the treble year, we've let go of some of them elite level players and we've not replaced them to the quality that we should have done. I'm talking players like, I don't know, Mahrez, yeah? We've not replaced him, right? We had a player, great player, his name was Cole Palmer. And my club decided to sell him for 40 million, despite the fact I sat there on a stream and said, this is a mistake. Yeah. We bought players like Nunes, who's not good enough. Phillips, who's not good enough. And then you look at the players that we had in the treble year that we still have, but are no longer as good. Edison, he don't want to be here. He wants to be in Saudi. He wants to run the bag. His head's not in it. Walker has declined since the treble year, right? You've got Gundogan has declined since the treble year. De Bruyne's declined since the treble year. Foden's declined since last year. So when you actually realise all that, you realise that we're not actually in a very good position right now. We're not a good football team. We concede far too many goals. We have to score 3 goals a game to win football matches. Our players are making mistakes every single game, which costs us goals. We don't create chances. We don't score enough. Now, and that's facts. That's not me overdoing it. That's why we've won one game in 11 or 12 or whatever it is. I'm losing count now because it's that bad. And the only way to get yourself out of this mess is to buy new players and move on players that are too old and are not good enough. And unfortunately, half the team falls into that second bracket. So, we're struggling, man. About the game itself, listen, I didn't expect a mad game. I thought it was a terrible football match. But my team was winning with 5 minutes to go. And I don't know if you guys saw Thierry Henry last night, but I thought he was spot on Monday Night Football. He said this team had the ball in the corner flag, or just next to the penalty area. Jack Grealish had it in the 88th minute. He could have gone to the corner flag. There's no shame in doing that. You've won 1 game in 10, 1 game in 11 against your local rivals. You're at home winning 1-0. He could have gone to the corner flag and held it there. He could have took his player on. But what did he do? He passed it back. And then what did Gundogan do? Or whoever it was. They passed it back. And then we passed it back to 2 players, Walker and Nunes, who are the 2 worst players in our whole team when you press them. And that's why Nunes received the ball and he was looking at Edison. As soon as Grealish passed that ball back, we was only ever going to go back to Edison. And then Nunes, it's unforgivable what he did. And then he's at fault for the second goal as well, which I didn't even realise until I watched it back. If you watch it back, I think it might be Bruno Fernandes. Someone's got the ball for United. And Diallo comes off the right-hand side. That's Nunes' man. And Nunes doesn't track Diallo. Diallo goes through, yes, Edison, blah, 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 yes, Gvardiol, blah, blah, blah. But it's Nunes' man, he doesn't track him. So listen, the whole thing was just a complete and utter disaster. The players didn't fight hard enough for me. I need to see more from Haaland. I need to see more from Foden. I need to see more from a lot of these players. But the crux of the matter is the squad is not good enough. It's nowhere near.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. When you realise it, and it took me a while, it took me a couple of months to realise it. I actually realised it a little bit when we were winning football matches. Because when I was watching us beat Fulham, should have got beat. Brentford, should have got beat. Wolves, should have drawn. Arsenal, should have probably have lost that game. And we're winning these games or nicking late points. That's when I realised that, we're winning. We've not got the squad, man. So, yeah, listen, we're in a top 4 race, top 5 race. We need to spend money in January. We need to get at least 3 players in January. And in the summer, we need another 4 or 5. And we need to be ruthless. We need to drop the sentiment. Some of these players have been great for us, legends, but we need to move them on.
Look, I almost felt a bit sorry for LB there. Manchester City are in the mud. It's great to see. It's been a long time coming, and it's just a shame that my team are almost in the mud with them. But it doesn't stop me laughing at Manchester City's downfall. Look, a lot of what I say is tongue-in-cheek with LB. He's one that has been calling it out for a few weeks, to be fair, that they haven't been good enough and that you need 3 goals to score. Remember you saying we need 3 goals to win a game. He's right. They're conceding way too many goals. Defensively, I think they are one of the worst in the league. On the ball at the moment, they're not creating anything. So when you've got that combination of not scoring and conceding goals, you're in trouble. And this is what I was meaning about Pep Guardiola, because as much as I don't look at just him, I look at there being a lot more problems than just Pep Guardiola. Look, it's hard to say, isn't it? When you have a problem with Pep Guardiola, he's been unbelievable for the last few, right? But when you look at what I said a couple of weeks ago, and LB wasn't happy with it, what I was meaning by that was, where is Pep going to go now that his tools are blunt? Where is he going to go? Is he going to try and change things up? Is he going to bring a few of the academy players in? Or is he going to stick with this? The answer is he's going to stick with it and beg for more money in January. And that was why I was using that comparison with Sir Alex Ferguson, because he had to get the best out of his tools that were blunt. And we're not seeing that at the moment with Pep Guardiola. So if the answer is they're just not good enough and nobody can coach them, then you see what you do in January. I think it is a massive, massive risk, and it's backfired now to rely on Rodri. Because a lot of people are calling him Rodri FC. I personally actually think now, even if you put Rodri in this side, I still think there'll be individuals that aren't performing. I still think there'll be some problems. Yes, they wouldn't be in an absolute downfall because we've seen what they're like with Rodri in the team. It's like having 2 or 3 players. He's that good, right? But I look at some of the individuals at the moment that just need to be looking at himself. And it ain't just Haaland and Foden. You've got to look at Grealish. You've got to look at Doku. You've got to look at Savio. You've got to look at Nunez. You've got to look at all these guys that are coming in. Bernardo Silva. I mean,
these players are not good enough, though. This is the thing, though, Potsy. Yeah, like, yes, you're right. But they're not good enough to be starting week in, week out for Manchester City, these players. Doku is not good enough to be starting for Manchester City week in, week out. For me, he's a rotational player. I don't mind him as a rotational player off the bench. You remember the FA Cup final, which we lost last year? He come off the bench and was almost saved it for us. Yeah, he absolutely cooked United when he come off. He just come on too late. But Grealish isn't doing enough, man. He needs to go at the end of the season. Savio's his first season. So I'm going to be a bit more chill with Savio and be like, yo, it's only 20. Yeah. He's getting into it. Give him another year. But, Bernardo, yeah, he's just, we've ran him into the ground, man. He's 30 years old, bro, but he's been playing 60 matches for City the last 5 or 6 years. So he's another one that probably needs to be moved on. He's not even wanted to be here. He wanted to leave 3 years ago. So like these players, yeah, that people are talking about, they're just not good enough anymore, man. And we just need to move them on and get some new ones in.
Yeah, you mentioned Jack Grealish there. I was looking for the data, the actual data on it to talk about it in a bit more detail. But yeah, here it is here. I'll put it up on the screen in a second, but it's my birthday is the anniversary, but it's been exactly 12 months since he scored a goal. And the one thing I've said during this whole bad run of yours, and I always give you credit for this, LB, because you're one of the very few City fans who actually calls out the problems. It's gone beyond the Rodri conversation. This isn't just about Rodri. There is. I think there are players that are bloated, too full on success. I think there are some that his legs have gone, like you've mentioned, and there's also been a lot of bad buys or players that have regressed in other ways. Because Jack Grealish's legs haven't gone, but 1 goal from him, no goals now. Sorry, in 365 days, you can actually see that. I mean, it isn't even crazy. I mean, he's only created from had 2.1 xG in that time. He's only had 34 shots in a year. For me, that's ridiculous. Just 34 shots. You would almost expect a player who's a forward for Man City to be having, 3 or 4 shots a game, maybe? Mm-hmm. To only have 34 shots in the space of 12 months is astronomically poor. And I know that a lot of City fans for years defended him and said, oh, you know, Pep liked him to make space for others and do. But he doesn't ask Savio and Doku to do that. It's bullshit, in my opinion. But on top of that, as you say, Doku, there isn't enough end product. Savio's in his first season, not enough end products. Phil Foden's having an off year. There's so many little things wrong. It's crazy. And listen, I fancied us to beat you at the weekend. I predicted a 2-1 win. I didn't predict it to go the way around. I thought we'd score first, and I thought we'd go 2-0 up, and then maybe you'd nick one late on like the FA Cup. But you were there from the taking from the opening minute. And Gary Neville was calling it out on commentary, and we were switching the ball to the wings. We had so much space to run into. The problem we had, barring Ahmad, our team didn't have the confidence to try and capitalize. But the longer that game went on, I did feel the better Man United became, the more confidence we have. I don't remember the last time we went away to your ground and had the same amount of possession as you. And some will say City gave us the possession. There's an element of truth in periods of the game, but I've never seen your press so poor. When we actually had the confidence to put 2 or 3 passes together near the edge of your box, we were able to work the ball into the box. I think it's the first time City at home in over 2 years had less touches in an opponent's box than their opponent. And listen, I'm not sitting here and trying to say Man United were amazing in every facet of the game. I wouldn't lie in that regard. But I think what it does show is some real deep-rooted problems at Manchester City, which I understand. I think new signings are absolutely key as an example. But Pep has got to find a way of re-injecting some confidence into these players, because I was looking at, you play Aston Villa away from home this week, and Villa have been on patchy form themselves, but this could legitimately go to 9 defeats in 12 games.
Look how it goes.